developing the network of marine protected areas, including those 10 sites mentioned by the member. So we will be considering further scientific advice from Scottish Natural Heritage and the Joint Nature Conservation Committee, and of course, once considered, we will set out our next steps for designating a network of MPAs within the next few months.
Colin Beattie.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that response. Does the Cabinet Secretary agree with me that understanding how best to protect Scotland's seabirds and address their decline is of vital importance as we seek to develop Scotland's offshore renewable resource, whilst also respecting our natural environment?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, clearly I do agree with that, and of course offshore renewables do already take account of potential impacts on seabirds, and these new plans and designations that are currently being considered will ensure further protection for Scotland's rich seabird heritage. It is also worth bearing in mind that there are already designations in place for marine waters at the moment, covering 31 seabird breeding colonies in Scotland that were of course designated back in 2009. But marine protected areas are also being considered for the black guillemot and other species that support seabirds.
Claudia Beamish.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. With regards to Colin Beattie's specific question about designating black guillemot and sand eel MPAs, can I ask the Cabinet Secretary if he could reassure us that he's taking into consideration with these MPAs the possibility of not just protecting but enhancing those features?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, I am aware there's a big campaign underway to persuade the Government to designate as part of our MP8 network sites that covered important seabird colonies and breeding areas and feeding areas. And that's why we are, as I said, considering whether the MPA network should take into account black guillemot and other species that support seabirds, including 4 sites for sand eels, which of course are an important food source for seabirds. So we are actively considering these designations.
Jamie McGregor.
Yes, thank you. On that point, what further actions are being considered to turn around the worrying trends relating to the dwindling number of sand eels, as these are obviously an important very important food thing for the seabirds?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, as I just indicated, part of our current consideration of the Marine Protected Area Network will include consideration of 4 sites where sand eels are present, which of course are an important food source for seabirds. Of course, this is quite a complex situation because climate change and other factors influence our sand eel populations, but we are certainly actively considering how sand eels can be included in the MP8 network.
Question 3, Alison Johnson.
To ask the Scottish Government who sits on the working group on supporter involvement in football clubs.
Cabinet Secretary Shona Robertson.
The recently established working group on support involvement in football clubs, chaired by Stephen Morrow, Senior Lecturer at Stirling University, includes representatives of the Scottish Football Association, the Scottish Professional Football League, Supporters Direct Scotland and Sport Scotland. The group is scheduled to meet for the first time on Friday the 30th and can, as part of its early considerations, review current membership to ensure that it has appropriate representation from clubs, supporters and the football authorities.
Alison Johnson.
Thank you. Does the Minister agree that one possible solution to moving Scottish football towards fan ownership would be for the sports governing bodies to require clubs to give fans the first right to buy when they come up for sale, and that if they are unwilling to do so, this Parliament may consider legislation?
Cabinet Secretary.
First of all, can I acknowledge Alison Johnson's long-standing interest in this area, and I'm sure we'll continue to have discussions about this. As I've indicated previously and during the debate on this issue last month, the governance and ownership of football clubs is a complex issue that we do require to carefully consider, which is why, of course, the Working Group on Support Involvement in Football Clubs was established, and I'm confident the group will, by working closely with those involved in all sides of the debate, will identify a range of possible options for change. As I said, the group meets for the first time tomorrow. It will look at all of these issues and they will look to give recommendations back to me by the end of this year, and then we can take forward the recommendations through Parliament.
Question number 4, Hugh Henry.
To ask the Scottish Government when the 4-hour target for accident and emergency treatment will be met at the Royal Alexandra Hospital in Paisley.
Cabinet Secretary Alex Neil.
Presiding Officer, the Scottish Government is working closely with NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde to ensure the 4-hour target for accident and emergency is met across all its sites, including the Royal Alexandra Hospital. Very clearly, we have some way to go to achieve the sustainable improvement required in the board area and at the Royal Alexandria, although performance in the Royal Alexandria Hospital is improving and is often above 90%, even meeting and exceeding the 95% target. However, we appreciate more work has to be done to continue improvements towards a sustainable and ongoing 95%.
Hugh Henry.
Presiding Officer, I'm disappointed that the Cabinet Secretary won't give an indication of when his target will be met. Presiding Officer, the RAH was one of only 2 hospitals in Scotland which failed to meet even 90% of the 4-hour target, according to Audit Scotland in November and December of last year. The Cabinet Secretary intervened to protect mental health services in his own area. Can I ask, will he now take a personal interest and intervene to deliver the target for patients in Renfrewshire?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, can I tell the member that the Royal Alexandra achieved just under 92% in March, which is obviously the latest official figure available. There were no waits exceeding 12 hours, and there was a 57% reduction in the number waiting over 8 hours, a substantial improvement on the performance when he was a minister. And the overall level in Scotland was 86%, described by the then Health Secretary Andy Kerr as a very, very good performance. I had a meeting recently with the Chair and Chief Executive of Greater Glasgow and Clyde Health Board, and I discussed with them the detailed plans we have right across the board area to ensure that that board, like every other board in Scotland, achieves the 95% target by September and then moves on to the 98% sustainable standard.
Question 5, Jimmy McGregor.
To ask the Scottish Government what action it is taking to reverse the projected population decline in Argyll and Bute.
Cabinet Secretary John Swinney.
Presiding Officer, the Scottish Government continues to support healthy population growth through working closely with a range of organisations, including Argyll and Bute Council and Highlands Anne's Enterprise, to promote sustainable economic growth in Argyll and Bute. This helps to ensure strong, thriving communities across the area that will retain and attract people. Population growth is a key driver of sustainable economic growth, as our government economic strategy makes clear.
Jimmy McGregor.
Thank you for that answer. Does the Minister share my concern that the recently published National Records of Scotland projections suggest Argyll and Bute's population will fall by 13.5% by 2037, the second largest projected decline in all of Scotland, and that the working age population is predicted to fall by almost 22%. Does the Minister agree with me that attracting new jobs and investment to boost economic growth in Argyll and Bute is vital to reversing this decline, and this means the Scottish Government must redouble efforts to improve the area's infrastructure in terms of improving roads like the A83 and ensuring proper broadband is available to all areas, including the small rural communities?
Cabinet Secretary.
I have a lot of sympathy with the points that Mr McGregor raises. I'm very clear in my first answer that improving economic opportunities is critical to boosting population. As part of that, what we can see in a range of different areas in the Highlands and Islands is that the rollout of digital connectivity, which of course is an ongoing priority for the Government, has boosted business prospects very significant, as have other measures that we've taken, such as the Small Business Bonus Scheme, which will be utilised extensively across the Argyll and Bute area. So the Government is very much focused on ensuring that the infrastructure in rural Scotland, whether it is transport infrastructure or broadband connectivity, is appropriate to attract business and to support and to encourage population growth. I will be participating later this year in a population summit on this issue with Argyll and Bute, and I look forward to making a contribution to that event.
Question 6, Hanzala Malik.
Thank you and good morning, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what action it has taken to resolve issue concerning duplicate registration in management information dental accounting system so that overpayments do not occur in the future.
Minister Michael Matheson.
The MIDAS payment system for dentists is a matter for Practitioner Services Division. I can confirm that Practitioner Services have put in place a number of measures to resolve issues causing duplicate registrations so that overpayments do not occur in the future.
Hanzala Malik.
Thank you for that. response. Since 2006, the Scottish Government own figures estimate that 3.4 million has been overpaid to NHS dentists. This is mainly caused by a series of flaws in MADAS system that are forced to use and not due to the fault of the dentists. Does the Minister agree that the sorting out of the problem should be a priority rather than punishing dentists for the error that is generated by a faulty computer system? And what actions is he going to take to ensure that this is fixed so that dentists do not suffer in the future?
Minister.
Well, I think it's important to understand information which is held on the MIDAS system is based upon the information that's supplied by the dentists, and the errors have occurred as a result of the information that was supplied by dentists and included on the system. In order to reduce those errors from occurring in the future, they're now attached to the CAI number in order to reduce the risk of someone actually being put on the system as a duplicate registration. But I'm sure the member will recognise that it's important that the over £3 million of overpayments that have been made to dentists have been retained within the dental budget in order to be invested within dentistry, and that money has been used to improve Scotland's oral health record, as we've been doing for a number of years now.
Make it brief, Dr Simpson.
Yes, thank you for that answer, Minister. But the problem is that one dentist doesn't know that another dentist has had a patient register with them in duplicate. So it's not the patient's, it's not the dentist's fault. And the system is requiring repayments over 4 years of this problem, which is an IT problem, to be repaid by these dentists within 6 weeks. Now, if you're running a business, that's really not good. And I would suggest the government have got to get this sorted properly and not punish the dentists.
Minister.
Well, I'm sure the member will recognise that the issue of overpayment that's been made to dentists is important that that's recovered. It's legally responsible for recovering that money. And no, it can be over a longer period of time as required. And there's a process in place to allow that to happen. And Practitioner Services Division will allow that to happen where it is appropriate. But I'm sure the member will welcome the fact that all of that money has been reinvested in NHS dental care provision in Scotland, which is a positive step to make sure that we continue to improve oral health care in Scotland.
Question 7, Gil Patterson.
Can I ask the Scottish Government when it last met with Police Scotland and what was discussed?
Cabinet Secretary Ken McCaskill.
I last met with representatives of Police Scotland at the public launch of the National Code of Ethics for Policing in Scotland held yesterday at the Scottish Police College. I was delighted to support this important development, which sees Police Scotland's values of integrity, fairness and respect firmly placed at the heart of our nation's policing.
Gil Patterson.
Can I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer? As